He called her stupid and lost $3.5 billion the very next day. Richard Kane, a billionaire CEO known for his ruthless business tactics, was preparing for the biggest merger of his career, a $3.5 billion deal that would cement his empire. Confident, arrogant, and used to people bending to his will, he flew to New York to meet with the key investors. That morning, he stopped at a local cafe, impatient and dismissive, barely noticing the people around him. A young black waitress named Amara accidentally spilled a cup of coffee near his table. "Careful," Richard barked. "Honestly, how do people like you even keep a job? You're stupid." The cafe fell silent. Amara, though shocked, didn't respond with fear. She simply smiled politely and returned to her work. Richard laughed to himself, thinking it was harmless banter. Little did he know, this moment would start a chain reaction he could never have predicted. Amara went home that night, upset but not broken. She had always known her worth and had ambitions far bigger than serving tables. She had been studying finance and business on her own, learning from online courses and shadowing mentors whenever possible. Richard, meanwhile, was preparing for his merger meeting. He didn't notice the viral video someone in the cafe had quietly recorded, the CEO insulting Amara. Within hours, social media exploded. Hashtags like stupid CEO and respect workers trended globally. Investors began calling, some hesitant to proceed. The deal he had counted on for years suddenly felt fragile. Amara's talent didn't go unnoticed. From the moment she handled the awkward confrontation with Richard, it became clear that her composure and intelligence were exceptional. While most people might have crumbled under the weight of public embarrassment, she remained calm, collected, and focused on the work at hand, displaying a rare blend of humility and confidence that quietly demanded respect. Among the cafe's regulars, there was one man who observed her closely with a discerning eye. Samuel Hayes, a retired investment banker who had spent decades navigating high-stakes negotiations and managing multi-million-dollar portfolios, recognized something in her that went beyond mere talent. He saw a spark, a resilience and innate intelligence that reminded him of his own younger self when he had been ambitious, determined, and full of potential, yet still untested in the ruthless world of business. One afternoon, while sipping his usual espresso, Samuel approached Amara with a polite yet direct proposition. "I've been watching you for some time," he said, his voice carrying the calm authority of someone accustomed to leadership. "Most people would have reacted poorly to what happened today, but you handled it with grace. I think you have tremendous potential. I'd like to mentor you if you're willing." Amara, though slightly surprised by the offer, sensed sincerity in his demeanor and agreed. She didn't fully understand the extent of what he had to offer, but instinctively she knew this could be a pivotal moment in her life. Over the following weeks, Samuel became a steadfast mentor, teaching her lessons that went far beyond conventional business wisdom. Each session challenged Amara to think critically, analyze situations from multiple perspectives, and apply strategies that even seasoned professionals often overlooked. She learned advanced negotiation tactics, not the kind taught in textbooks, but real-world strategies that could turn a hostile boardroom into a forum of collaboration. Samuel emphasized the importance of preparation, the power of reading people, and the subtle art of persuasion, showing her how small behavioral cues, tone adjustments, and timing could sway outcomes dramatically. In addition, she delved into corporate strategy, studying market dynamics, competitive analysis, and risk management in a way that allowed her to anticipate potential pitfalls and opportunities alike. But perhaps the most transformative lessons were those about leadership. Samuel stressed that true leaders earned respect not through authority or fear, but through integrity, empathy, and vision. Amara practiced these principles daily, observing how her calm demeanor and ethical approach drew people in, building trust and credibility. Meanwhile, Richard's arrogance grew unchecked. He remained convinced that his charm, social standing, and wealth insulated him from criticism or failure. He continued to dismiss public opinion, confident that investors would overlook his missteps as long as he projected an image of competence. He underestimated the quiet power of ethical leadership and the appeal of authenticity, believing instead that ego and bravado were sufficient for success. As time went on, however, cracks began to appear. Investors, initially dazzled by Richard's confident presentation and high-profile reputation, started to notice inconsistencies and a lack of substance beneath the surface. The more they observed Amara, the more impressed they became by her depth of understanding, analytical skill, and composure under pressure. They saw in her someone who could navigate complex situations with intelligence, fairness, and foresight, qualities far more valuable than superficial charisma. Pressure mounted as Amara subtly demonstrated her growing capabilities, often providing insights that Richard himself had overlooked. Her ability to remain poised while dissecting complex financial scenarios impressed not only the investors but also colleagues who had long been skeptical of her. People began to whisper about her potential quietly, recognizing that her approach to ethics and competence represented a new standard in an environment often dominated by ego and self-interest. Samuel observed these developments with quiet satisfaction, getting her through each interaction, preparing her for moments of confrontation and negotiation, and reinforcing the principles that would allow her to maintain integrity without compromising effectiveness. Amara absorbed these lessons with a mix of eagerness and diligence, practicing tirelessly, refining her communication skills, and internalizing strategies that would have taken years for most to master. As the weeks progressed, her confidence soared. Where she had once doubted her ability to stand up to someone like Richard, she now felt prepared to navigate the most challenging boardroom discussions with clarity, authority, and ethical conviction. Investors, increasingly aware of the contrast between her quiet competence and Richard's unchecked ego, began to see her as the stabilizing force capable of guiding projects to successful outcomes while maintaining ethical integrity. This admiration was not loud or boastful. It was quiet, respectful, and grounded in genuine recognition of skill and character. Amara's journey illustrated a profound truth, that talent combined with mentorship, ethical grounding, and perseverance could transform a seemingly ordinary individual into a figure capable of inspiring confidence and driving meaningful change. While Richard continued to miscalculate and underestimate the ripple effects of arrogance, Amara's quiet diligence, nurtured by Samuel's mentorship, positioned her as a rising force in the business landscape, someone whose story would eventually inspire others to value integrity, intelligence, and resilience above ego and appearances. By the end of this period, it was clear that Amara's trajectory was accelerating rapidly, while Richard's hubris threatened to undermine the very foundations he had long relied upon. Investors, colleagues, and even casual observers found themselves drawn to Amara, recognizing in her a rare combination of insight, ethical grounding, and leadership potential. The contrast could not have been starker: a young professional empowered by mentorship and inner strength, and a seasoned businessman blinded by ego and overconfidence. In every meeting, every negotiation, every subtle interaction, Amara's growth was evident. She was no longer just the composed young woman who had endured an insult with grace. She had become a formidable presence, capable of influencing decisions, guiding teams, and commanding respect. Her story was becoming a quiet testament to the power of mentorship, the value of ethical competence, and the enduring impact of resilience in the face of arrogance. And as she continued to learn, adapt, and excel, it became increasingly apparent that Amara was not simply keeping pace with the world around her. She was redefining the standards of leadership, showing that true influence stemmed not from intimidation or ego, but from skill, integrity, and the ability to inspire trust in those around her. Investors, once skeptical, began to admire her silently, while Richard, oblivious to the shifting dynamics, continued on a path that would soon bring the consequences of underestimating her to the forefront. Amara's rise was steady, deliberate, and unstoppable, a quiet force built on knowledge, mentorship, and the unshakable confidence that comes from mastering one's craft and acting with unwavering ethical conviction. Richard entered the boardroom that morning with his usual air of confidence, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, a crisp tie, and polished shoes that gleamed under the bright conference room lights. He carried with him a sense of invincibility, convinced that charm, reputation, and sheer force of personality would be enough to secure the $3.5 billion merger he had been negotiating for months. He smiled as he approached the head of the table, exchanging casual pleasantries with investors many of whom he assumed were there merely to rubber stamp his vision. He did not notice the subtle glances exchanged between them, nor the faint expressions of hesitation on faces that had seen much in the world of high finance. Richard's assumption was that everyone would comply without question, that his status and reputation insulated him from scrutiny, and that no one would dare challenge him in such a formal, high-stakes setting. The mood in the room shifted almost imperceptibly when Helena Morse, the lead investor, a formidable woman known for her sharp mind, strategic thinking, and zero tolerance for arrogance or misconduct, leaned forward. Her eyes, calm yet piercing, met Richard, and for a brief moment, a flicker of unease crossed his face, though he quickly masked it with a smug smile. "Richard," she began, her voice deliberate and authoritative, "before we proceed with this merger, we need to address a matter that has come to our attention regarding your public conduct." Richard raised an eyebrow, attempting to project confidence. "I'm not sure what you're referring to," he said, his tone slightly defensive but still laced with arrogance. Helena's gaze did not waver, and she continued with measured precision. "We've seen the video. The footage of you insulting a staff member, publicly demonstrating disrespect and lack of consideration for those working under your leadership. We cannot in good conscience entrust $3.5 billion to someone who treats people in such a manner. Leadership is not simply about vision or financial acumen. It is about integrity, respect, and the ability to inspire confidence and trust. And right now, you have failed to demonstrate any of these qualities." A tense silence filled the room. The murmurs of the other investors rose briefly, but were quickly stifled by Helena's unwavering presence. Richard sputtered, his face flushing as the gravity of the situation hit him. He had never anticipated that a moment of public arrogance, a single lapse in judgment, could have consequences of this magnitude. His mind raced, searching for a way to recover, to deflect, to charm his way out of the predicament, but the weight of the evidence against him, combined with the credibility of Helena and the other investors, quiet but growing scrutiny, left him cornered. At that precise moment, Amara was invited into the meeting. She entered calmly, dressed professionally yet unassumingly, carrying a notebook and a quiet confidence that immediately contrasted with Richard's flamboyance. Samuel Hayes, who had guided her through months of mentoring in negotiation, corporate strategy, and leadership, had recommended her presence, believing that her insights could provide clarity and exemplify ethical leadership in action. She took a seat slightly off to the side, observing the tension in the room, and waited for the appropriate moment to speak. Once Helena had made her point, Amara spoke, her voice clear, measured, and authoritative without arrogance. "Leadership," she began, "is not measured by how loudly one can assert authority or by the deals one can manipulate. True leadership is about respect, integrity, vision, and the ability to inspire confidence in those around you. A leader earns trust not through fear or dominance, but through consistent ethical behavior, intelligent decision-making, and the courage to uphold principles even when it is inconvenient or unpopular." She paused, allowing her words to sink in, then continued. "When we choose to invest in a leader or a company, we are not merely investing in numbers on a spreadsheet. We are investing in people, in culture, and in the long-term sustainability of the organization. Ignoring misconduct or undervaluing the importance of respect undermines not just individual relationships, but the entire foundation upon which a company is built." The room was silent again, but this time, the silence carried a weight of reflection. Investors exchanged subtle nods, quietly acknowledging the truth in Amara's words. Richard, who had once projected unshakable confidence, now looked increasingly desperate, realizing that charm and reputation alone could not salvage the situation. He attempted to interject, to justify his behavior, but his words fell flat, drowned out by the clarity and authority of Amara's calm, yet compelling explanation. One by one, the investors began to withdraw their commitment, some politely stating concerns about leadership integrity, others citing the potential long-term risks of associating with a leader whose judgment could not be trusted. Richard's smug facade crumbled entirely as the realization dawned on him. The $3.5 billion deal he had assumed would be effortless was slipping through his fingers, and there was nothing he could do to reverse it. Helena, maintaining her composed authority, concluded the discussion. "We must act in alignment with our principles and our responsibility to stakeholders. While the financial opportunity is significant, we cannot proceed without confidence in the leadership guiding this merger. Therefore, we are withdrawing our commitment. The room remained tense, a mixture of shock, disappointment, and quiet relief hanging in the air. Richard sat frozen, stunned by the turn of events, his ego shattered by a reality he had long refused to acknowledge, that arrogance, disrespect, and ethical lapses carry consequences, no matter one's status or past achievements. Amara, seated calmly, allowed the room to absorb the lesson. She had not sought attention or recognition. Her presence was simply a demonstration of what principled, competent leadership looked like in practice. Her ability to articulate the importance of respect, intelligence, and vision over ego had shifted the dynamics entirely, exposing the vulnerabilities in Richard's approach while reinforcing the values the investors themselves admired. Samuel Hayes observed from a distance, quietly proud. The mentorship that had guided Amara to this moment had equipped her with the tools, confidence, and insight to influence high-stakes decisions and challenge entrenched arrogance. The culmination of months of preparation, study, and ethical grounding had resulted in a tangible, decisive outcome: the loss of a major deal for an unprepared, overconfident executive, and the affirmation of principled leadership in the eyes of seasoned investors. As the investors exited, some offering polite nods to Amara, she remained seated for a moment, reflecting on the weight of responsibility that leadership carries. The lesson was clear: power without respect and competence is fleeting, while integrity, insight, and courage in leadership endure. Richard, meanwhile, was left to grapple with the consequences of underestimating others, failing to uphold ethical standards, and relying solely on ego. The $3.5 billion merger was gone, and with it, the illusion of invincibility he had clung to for so long. In the quiet aftermath, the boardroom became a testament to the transformative power of mentorship, the importance of ethical leadership, and the undeniable truth that competence coupled with integrity can overcome arrogance, reshape perceptions, and influence outcomes in ways that mere status or bravado never can. Amara's role, though understated, had tipped the balance, showing that knowledge, preparation, and ethical conviction could decisively alter the course of even the most high-stakes negotiations, leaving Richard with a lesson that would resonate far beyond the loss of a single deal. Amara's reputation skyrocketed in the months following the dramatic boardroom confrontation that had seen Richard lose the $3.5 billion merger. Her calm, composed demeanor, her intelligence, and the ethical clarity she demonstrated during that pivotal moment had not gone unnoticed by industry leaders, investors, and media alike. Word of her expertise, her ability to navigate complex corporate challenges, and her unshakable integrity spread quickly, earning her invitations to speak at conferences, seminars, and leadership summits around the world. Amara approached these opportunities with the same poise she had displayed in the boardroom. She spoke not to showcase her own achievements or to feed ego, but to share insights, strategies, and lessons that could help others cultivate leadership rooted in competence, respect, and vision. Each keynote she delivered captivated audiences, combining practical business tactics with inspirational stories that illustrated resilience, problem-solving, and the importance of ethical decision-making. Her presentations became sought-after events, attended by aspiring entrepreneurs, corporate executives, and young professionals eager to learn from someone who had turned a moment of injustice and public insult into a powerful platform for transformation. Simultaneously, her reputation as a business consultant grew exponentially. Companies struggling with leadership challenges, organizational inefficiencies, or ethical dilemmas sought her guidance. She analyzed operations, identified areas of weakness, and offered strategies that were both innovative and practical, always emphasizing sustainable growth, ethical management, and employee empowerment. Her approach was holistic. She believed that true business success was not measured solely by profits, but by the strength of culture, the development of talent, and the integrity with which companies operated. Through her consulting work, Amara demonstrated the tangible benefits of principled leadership, often turning around struggling organizations and helping them regain trust and credibility in the marketplace. Investors, once cautious, were eager to collaborate with her, recognizing that her judgment, foresight, and ethical grounding made her a partner who could safeguard and grow their interests in a sustainable way. The combination of public recognition, practical results, and unwavering professionalism propelled Amara into a position few could have predicted when she had first endured Richard's insult. She leveraged this momentum to take an even bolder step, founding her own investment firm. With the guidance and mentorship of Samuel Hayes, she meticulously planned each aspect of her company, ensuring that its values, structure, and strategic direction reflected the principles she had come to embody. Her firm prioritized transparency, ethical investing, talent development, and socially responsible growth, quickly gaining a reputation as a company that could achieve remarkable financial results without compromising integrity. Entrepreneurs and established businesses alike sought her firm's services, drawn not just by the promise of financial expertise, but by the credibility, trustworthiness, and thought leadership Amara represented. Media outlets highlighted her journey extensively, portraying her rise as a model of perseverance, intelligence, and moral clarity. Headlines praised her ability to turn adversity into opportunity, emphasizing that she had achieved success not by undermining others or chasing ego-driven goals, but by remaining true to her principles and focusing on long-term, meaningful impact. Meanwhile, Richard's world had shifted dramatically. The loss of the $3.5 billion merger, once thought to be a testament to his invincibility, had irreparably damaged his reputation. Investors who had once followed him blindly now hesitated, questioning his judgment and integrity. Media coverage, initially sympathetic, turned critical, highlighting his arrogance, poor leadership decisions, and failure to recognize the consequences of disrespecting those under his management. Attempts to rebuild his career were met with skepticism, as he struggled to regain credibility in a landscape that now valued ethical behavior and competence over charm and ego. The contrast between his decline and Amara's ascent could not have been more striking. While he clung desperately to status and superficial achievements, she continued to build influence and respect through consistent demonstration of skill, integrity, and vision. Amara, however, never gloated. Her approach to success was grounded in humility and a deep sense of responsibility. She understood that her journey had been shaped not only by her own talent and perseverance, but also by the guidance of mentors like Samuel, the support of allies, and the lessons learned from challenges and adversity. Rather than using her platform to boast or seek revenge, she focused on amplifying the voices and potential of those who had been underestimated, undervalued, or insulted. She launched programs, workshops, and mentorship initiatives aimed at empowering individuals who faced discrimination, marginalization, or systemic barriers, offering them the tools, knowledge, and confidence to excel in their careers and personal ambitions. Through these efforts, Amara transformed her experience into empowerment, creating a ripple effect that reached countless individuals across industries and communities. Her firm became more than a financial enterprise. It became a hub for cultivating talent, nurturing innovation, and fostering ethical leadership. Young professionals, particularly women and those from underrepresented backgrounds, saw in Amara a role model and mentor, someone who had navigated adversity with grace and had emerged not just successful, but committed to creating opportunities for others. As her influence grew, Amara remained deliberate and thoughtful in her decisions, never succumbing to the pressure to chase vanity metrics or hollow accolades. She understood that true leadership was measured not by public recognition alone, but by the tangible impact on people's lives, organizational culture, and long-term ethical standards. Investors and business leaders came to trust her not only for her analytical acumen, but also for her moral compass, recognizing that her guidance would help them navigate complex decisions with clarity, foresight, and integrity. In boardrooms, conferences, and mentoring sessions, she consistently demonstrated that intelligence, resilience, and ethical leadership could achieve extraordinary outcomes while inspiring others to reach their full potential. The story of Amara's rise became a modern example of how principled action, continuous learning, and dedication to empowering others could create transformative change. While financial success was a natural consequence of her efforts, her legacy was rooted in the lives she touched, the leaders she nurtured, and the ethical standards she championed. Richard's downfall, meanwhile, served as a cautionary tale. Arrogance, disrespect, and short-sighted behavior could erode even the most carefully constructed reputations, whereas integrity, perseverance, and a commitment to empowering others could elevate an individual to heights far beyond what ego alone could achieve. Amara's journey illustrated that true success was not measured merely by wealth or titles, but by the ability to inspire, guide, and create meaningful, lasting impact in the world. Her firm flourished, her voice resonated globally, and her mentorship programs continued to empower countless individuals, turning personal adversity into collective triumph. The rise of this new star, Amara, marked a profound shift in the business landscape, demonstrating that leadership anchored in intelligence, grace, resilience, and ethics was not only possible, but also transformative, reshaping industries, empowering people, and redefining what it meant to succeed with purpose and integrity. Years later, Richard Kane reflected on that morning in the cafe. He realized that wealth and power could not replace humility, empathy, and respect. Amara, on the other hand, had become a symbol of talent, perseverance, and the power of self-belief. From a waitress underestimated by a billionaire to a multi-millionaire business leader, she proved one undeniable truth: intelligence and dignity always outlast arrogance. And somewhere in the business world, CEOs whispered to themselves, "Never underestimate anyone, especially not someone they think is stupid."